welcome back to the Black Mental Wellness Lounge. So we're excited for you guys to jump on and talk about this important topic. We have two really great school counselors here to talk through how can we support our kids during this virtual space. We had no time to really plan last year. We have some time this year. And as we think about kids being virtual and then what reintegration means back into schools, we want to make sure we're in a position to help our students. And so we had a little bit of technical difficulties at the beginning of this conversation. So I do want to address that and say that I'm going to, after this quick opening, I'm going to pass it in and we'll start that conversation with the school counselors. I do want to say thanks to everyone who supported the fundraiser. We were able to hit our goals in 3 weeks, and so I'm really excited about that. And you all will see the changes with the videos hopefully really soon. And so I appreciate that support. I want to shout out my top donors, Sylvester, Jasper, Adam, and Darian. I appreciate you, brothers. So thank you so much for your support and everyone who supported this endeavor. And so with that, I am going to transition and open up and get into this conversation. So thank you for being on. Like and share and subscribe. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Tiffany Batiste. I am a school counselor in Waldorf, Maryland. I am a school counselor at a middle school. I currently have 8th grade. This is my second year with my cohort of students. However, I started in the elementary level, so I have actually had my students since 4th grade.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that and for being here. And so, Catherine, I'm going to go and toss it to you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Catherine. I work in Baltimore City Public Schools, and I'm also a guidance counselor or school counselor, as we prefer to be called. I work in a K through 8 school, so I work with students in actually pre-K to 8th grade. I work closely with the students from 6th through 8th. Some of the things that I do with them, I get them really prepared for high school. That's my main role with them. And for my younger students, I do a lot of character education and teaching pro-social behaviors.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for being on. And so I want to start this discussion with both of you had talked about being school counselors. You all are in different settings and, working with some different age groups. And so, people hear school counselor, hopefully parents know who their kids' school counselors are. But when people hear that, they try to figure out what that means. If you all could just walk through kind of, what your role is, what you all do, and some of the things that you do as a part of your role.
I'll start. At the role of a school counselor, I actually did a lot of drop-ins today in the Zooms, letting kids know what I do. So I help them academically, I help them socially and emotionally. We do a lot of career development, so we make sure they're college and career ready. What that's going to look like for my 8th graders is going to be that high school transition, applying for high schools of their choice with the academics. I help a lot with those organizational skills that kids may have. I can also be in a parent-teacher conference, trying to be that go-between with the teachers and the students and the parent to see what we can do to get them to be their best self within that classroom. Emotionally and socially, do a lot of groups with students with some social skills training. Our groups can run anywhere from anger management to grief and loss. We do this by our needs assessment, so our groups are targeted, and we use a lot of data to figure out what we're going to do in our groups and our classroom lessons when we come in, what we're going to teach, and the one-on-one support that we provide. Counselors are not a long-term support within the school, but we do provide referrals. If you have a student who is in the building and they have some issues and they may express self-harm, we do day screenings. That's what we call them in my building, which are suicide assessments or screenings. And we do help our administrators when there's a threat assessment with against another student. So we do a lot of things. We're like the kitchen drawer.
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect.
I would say the same thing for my situation too at my school. It's very collaborative. We do a lot of working in groups. But I'll go ahead and start from the younger kids on up to give you a good understanding of what I do. So for our younger kids, again, it's a lot of just coming in, helping with that classroom management, especially for our new teachers, and then also that character development and the classroom guidance lessons. With them, also, I work very closely with their parents, offering workshops, also offering services outside of the school as well. So for the younger kids, it is more of a integrated classroom approach where I come in and I work with the teachers. I also run a team called SST, Student Support Team. And so for that, I am the chairperson that oversees interventions and modifications to students' learning before they would go to an official plan like an IEP. And then when I move up to the higher grades, like third, fourth, and fifth, it's a little bit more involved. We start bringing in that career education. I coordinate career days for the students. We start talking about high school already then. We use different programs. We have a wonderful program called Naviance, which is a career and college program where they put in their goals and they set a foundation for where it is they would like to go once they get older and once they go off to high school and beyond. And then with my older students, again, that college and career readiness is everything. Getting them ready for high school, taking them on high school trips. We do a lot of college visits. We have a lot of speakers coming to the building. We also incorporate sex education into our program. That's something that I'm responsible for. And also parent workshops. One thing that I've been doing virtually this year, I've been holding a parent town hall. We call it a parent university, where I meet with the parents once a week around 6 o'clock on every Thursday. And we just talk about different updates that are going on in the school and how we can help their children socially and emotionally, especially during COVID-19 and virtual learning.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to, first of all, as a parent of an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old, I want to thank you both for what you all do every day. I don't know if I could do it, so I appreciate the work that you all are able to do and put into it. And so, like, both of you talked about having, like, doing different aspects of like child wellness, right? So like you talked about career advancement and readiness for like whatever next level that they're going to, and you talked about the social and emotional piece. And so since we transitioned to this virtual space, I can imagine you all in your work have been able to see different things and understand different aspects of what the children are going through. So can you all walk us through like what have you been seeing with our kids in a general sense, especially with the social and emotional piece, and even too with just some different aspects of virtual learning? What have you all been seeing with the kids so far?
Well, I've seen a
I'll let you go,
variety.
Catherine.
Okay. All right. I've seen a variety of things. One thing that we are trying to work through right now in Baltimore City is getting students logged on and attending classes. We have a issue with just the whole connectivity piece, the digital divide right now. That is a real thing for us. And then also many of our students, some of them are home by themselves or they're with their siblings or with like a group of children together trying to learn. But for the students that I see each day, I go into classrooms each morning virtually just to give a opening for social emotional learning. They seem to be really engaged and excited, and that's the great part. And I'm so glad to see that. And then on the other hand, we had some students that are apathetic and they're not excited about logging in because they might miss that piece of face-to-face interaction. And then also some students or some people just need that, direct contact. Virtual learning and doing school online is not necessarily the easiest thing to do. So I see a variety with our kids.
I see a lot of those same things as well. Being in a more rural setting, connectivity issues are still there. We're still waiting for laptops to come in for the kids and all of those things. But being in a rural area, one of the things about Waldorf, Maryland, is it is definitely a commuter town. So people live here, but they do not work here. So our families, our parents, they're going to DC, they're going to Annapolis, whatever's 45 minutes to an hour away. So my middle schoolers are pretty much essentially at home by themselves. So that motivation and that engagement becomes a concern because although students are technically logged in and on a screen and you see a name or a student ID number there, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're participating. So we're trying to get that student engagement here. That is a big part that I see. I'm finding that our students are very resilient in this time. We did a mental health survey in my counseling department, and our students generally are saying that they're okay, that they're mentally in a good space, they're okay. Some of them even like the virtual learning, but it's that lack of social connection that they're really missing. They want to be with their friends. They prefer that face-to-face instruction. I'd rather walk up to my teacher and say, hey, can you help me? Versus getting kicked out of a Zoom session and needing to ask 4 or 5 different people, how do I get back in? A lot of them need learning materials. We don't have math manipulatives at home. You don't have any books, textbooks at home. So you have to go off of whatever it is that the teacher is providing you with on the screen. So those are some of the big concerns that I see in my neck of the woods.
Yeah, I mean, all those things are things that I've seen, and with my kids and their friends, like trying to stay on and stay engaged and trying to figure out, and they're trying to navigate this with us. I think the adults were trying to figure this out over the summer, like how the heck do we do this? So, the spring we had no prep. The summer we had a little bit, but that time frame was so short that if we blinked and we were back in school. And so I know like there are a lot of parents who, like as you said, Tiffany, some of them are not home. They're not able to watch it. They're not able to see how their kids are going. And some of them are there, but you have work, you have balance that you have to do at home too. And so from you all's perspective, what are some of the things that parents should be looking for in their kids, like to see if they're having some type of stress with this, like they're going through some social and emotional challenges? Like what should parents, look out for as their kids are doing virtual learning?
I would say, just knowing your child, asking the question straight up. As we, become more comfortable in the Black community with mental health, ask them, are you okay? How are you feeling? We know this might be a tough time. This is rough. This is not normal, even though it's becoming the new normal. How is it making you feel? But outside of that, just observing them, just even that actual affect on their face. How do they look? How are they talking? What are some of the things that they're saying? Are they still interested in doing some of the activities that they were already doing outside of school? And more than likely they are, because it's a break from, being on the computer screen. But I find just really talking to children, they will tell you a lot if you ask. But other than that, just really observation.
I agree. If you're a parent and you're noticing that your child is having difficulty concentrating, that they're not the normal selves, they have change in sleep, mood, anything. If they're not their normal selves, as she has so eloquently stated, then I would definitely be saying, hey, there's something to this. What should I do? They're not as engaged as much as they normally have been. If you have a child who is normally a participant in every single thing, and now they're not able to go to school, and now they're not able to play sports, now they're not able to attend clubs, they have to find a new sense of purpose while they're at home to give themselves something to look forward to.
Mm-hmm. I like that. A new sense of purpose. I love that.
Yeah, like that's so true. That they're creatures of habit, just like we are. And they're trying to figure this all out, and the loss of friends and that social piece is key. And especially we talk about those older kids. We when we get older, we try to downplay it, but we knew when we were in high school, you had a little boyfriend, little girlfriend, little best friend, like all that, like those relationships were heavy. Like they meant a lot. Like you couldn't tell us like this is, these are the people I'm staying with forever. Like this is, what this is. And so like they
It's the
try to
best 2
navigate
weeks
that
of their
too. And to
life.
us, we like right. Right. And so it's different for them. Like they're trying to, adapt to this too. And so as parents, sometimes we feel a little, helpless in the sense of like, they have to do the virtual things. You want to keep them safe. Like it would be great if they could be with their friends all the time, but you don't know where other people are going, and if they're taking the quarantines and stuff seriously. And so it's so much of a risk. And so you're like, you err on the side of caution and you keep them home. And so, as we're doing that, how can parents, caregivers, friends of people with kids, like how can we all support kids during this time? Like what would be some good tips that you all could give us to help us help them manage this space?
I would say I would start with monitoring their emotions. I think that's a big thing. If you start to notice those kind of swings and that's not normal, you normally have a happy child. I would try to do some things with them with learning how to manage their emotions. We shouldn't have to go through 0 to 100 that fast. I like when I used to work at the elementary level, I always use the volcano analogy. Things, they come on, it's so much pressure, and then finally, boom, it'll explode. So we try to take that pressure off before we get to that moment of explosion. Definitely educating the kids so that they know what's going on. I would say also perhaps limiting some screen time. You don't have to get inundated with the news because that can be quite scary. You want to have some level of control of what it is that they're intaking. A big part in this time is our children, our students, they don't feel like they have much control, and you want to be able to give them some agency throughout this situation.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with that as well. Social media and just television, period. We see so much. And we have all these new platforms. TikTok. I didn't know TikTok actually had like stories. Like my daughter tells me about things she learned off of TikTok. I thought it was just dances, but apparently you can learn things. So limiting those types of media that could either cause thoughts or create anxiety in our children is something that we need to definitely monitor. But one thing that I always am a huge advocate is getting children together. I feel like this is the time that children can spend time with their cousins, spend time with their siblings in the home, and kind of build strong relationships within the home and that family unit already. And then also another one that I'm a huge proponent of that really is good for just clearing the mind, helping them find something different that they might not always do is just being outside, getting into sports again, getting into just being outside in nature, taking walks, exercising. I find those things to be very beneficial for kids, especially if they're in the house all the time, doing virtual learning.
If y'all can help me put my kids out, that would be great because they don't want to leave. Like so they have gotten to this homebody sense and we like go outside. Like yesterday they went out and they engaged, but like last year like in the spring like it took a minute for them to get to get used to that. Where you're not gonna just play games all the time just be in the house just because you're here. And so I think that's a good point too. So like y'all dropped some really good tips with this. And so a lot of times we talk about parents and we try to equip the parents and make sure the parents are good. Our kids are the ones going through this and having this change at such a young age. Like, who knows what we would have done, not to age us, but if we were in school and we have these Zooms and laptops, who knows what this would look like. But, this is their reality. This is something that they're going to remember probably for the rest of their lives. And so as they're going through this, there's also, and you guys kind of alluded to it, there's so much going on nationally and globally, like for our kids and especially our Black kids as they are, navigating this space where they have access to everything. They can see, when the things happen with George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, like they're engaged. Like if they watch sports, like the NBA, Black Lives Matter is on, is on the court. Like they are fully aware of what's happening, which I think is amazing. But it also comes with, it can come with, stress. It can come with some anxiety. And this is on top of them trying to figure out school. And we know that kids deal with, racism and discrimination and stuff like that too. My wife found an Instagram page that basically had, it was where Black kids who went to private schools could go in and talk about like the racist things that they had experienced and stuff. And so it's prevalent, and like our kids get it. And so like they're really in this tough time. And so what would be some tips and strategies that you would give kids right now as they try to navigate this, and how can they take care of themselves and try to, do some things to help themselves if they're like, I don't want to talk about it, but I may be struggling with this whole thing?
One thing that we do at my school, we do restorative circles or have restorative practice, which is pretty much almost like a counseling / psychoeducation circle where we bring up significant topics. And the purpose is to build community and also to kind of do a climate and culture check with the students and the children. I find it to be really helpful. And we throw questions out there. We throw it right out there with our older kids. What do you think about the Black Lives Matter movement? Did you participate over the summertime? Did you, have you had any experiences that could relate to anything that we've already seen on television? I like to be just very direct, especially with the older ones. Now, as far as the younger ones are concerned, it's many things that we can do as well, teach them about culture. And that is, Black culture, but then also culture around the world as well. So diversity, that comes in. That's a huge piece for our counseling practice. So, just having those candid conversations in a way that's developmentally appropriate for the student.
Yes. So during our virtual learning, we're not necessarily doing restorative practice in that manner. We normally do it within the building, so it's a little bit more informal. We do our weekly chats on our offline learning days, which are Wednesdays. So it gives those students a chance to pop in with their school counselor and other students and to just talk. It's a very important time for to allow students to be able to use their voice because they have it, and from their understanding, no one's listening or no one understands. So it's important when you are talking to your child about these issues to use those open-ended questions. Tell me more. What is your understanding about that? So that those children can acknowledge their feelings and their worries. We don't want them to just have it bottled in. I like to tell students who don't like speaking with people, even though finding a trusted adult is a good thing. If it's not your school counselor, it's your parent or an uncle or a coach, whatever that may be. But if you can just journal and write those things down and then go back and reflect on it, that will give you a very good space to develop emotionally and have a better understanding what you feel about what's going on. And after you are in that space, what then do you want to do with that? Do you want to create a social justice club? Do you want to march? What is it that you want to do? I think that it's very important for our students to understand that they have a voice and that they can use it even at their age in 6th through 8th grade on up to high school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Tiffany, I really like that. It's like empowering the students and having them take their own action. And you're giving me some ideas now. I'm sitting here thinking like, okay, you can do a project, you can do a collage. So yeah, that's amazing. I like that.
Look, we building resources even within the even within the interview. But yeah, I mean those are some good points. Like it's so it's so good for them to like have voice and to be able to to talk and to really share like what's happening with them, because both of you are right. Like asking them direct is key, because we kind of think like historically we've been like we don't want to put too much on our kids. We don't want to expose them to too much. Like, they're exposed. Like, they know, like, they are not in a bubble. And as much as any parent would want to keep a child in a bubble right now, it is impossible to be able to do that. And so just for them to be able to talk about that is key. And I also really like the point about being able to give them open-ended questions that they can think through and kind of talk more, and not just give you like, I'm cool, I'm fine, and those things. At my church, like, I work with high schoolers a lot, and so like, you have to ask open-ended questions, because they will I'm good you to death if you don't dig a little deep with them. So yeah, so those are really good points. And so how should parents be engaging you all? Like, so how should parents be connecting to school counselors right now? Like, what are some of the things that parents should talk to you about? Like, what are those things that you would be like, oh, I would love it if a parent came to me and was like asking me about this? I'd be like, yes, like, like, let's talk about it, like, let's get engaged. Like, how should parents be interacting with you all?
Well, parents should be open. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Okay.
No, I was just going to say, for me, the biggest thing that I want to say to parents, or I would want to know for parents to know, is please come and meet with me and chat with me before the crisis. It's very helpful if you know the parent and know the student before you have to know the concern, so we can know what we're working with and how best to help them. And also, it can be quite uncomfortable if you're just meeting me and now we're talking about you losing a family member to COVID, because you won't feel comfortable with sharing that information with me if you're meeting me during the crisis. So that was one of the biggest things I want to let parents know, to please meet your counselors right now. Ask them even the simplest of things. Can I have this class? Can my child have this class instead of this class? Or we're having connectivity issues, whatever it is, just please meet with your counselor before the crisis. Some of the things I would love for parents to talk to me about is what I've already mentioned, is grief and loss. I'm a very big advocate. I deal a lot with that. And I know that students have experienced a lot of loss because of COVID, but not just loss of life, but loss of their control over their daily schedule, loss of the social connections that they had that can no longer be within the school building. So that is a big area that I would love for people to come and open and share up with me. But I want them to know, please meet your school counselor before the crisis. I promise you, it will be better.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And this year I went above and beyond, and still going above and beyond, to make sure that new parents know exactly who I am, and making sure I'm very accessible so they can come to me anytime. So one thing about virtual learning right now, like, time is kind of, I'm not gonna say it's obsolete, but time barriers are not the same what they used to be. So, I have some parents sometimes emailing me or texting me, after hours, it could be 6 or 7. But I make sure I try to answer, because I want them to feel comfortable in coming to me, asking me for those things that might not have to do with counseling. And like Tiffany said, sometimes it's about computers, sometimes it's about materials, it's about all other things. But other than that, some of the things that I do, again, I do the town hall meeting with my parents every week. We have social media pages for our particular roles at school that parents are encouraged to join and follow. We do Class Dojo. So we just make sure that, communication is out there, and we want them to feel welcomed in our presence. That's the most important piece.
Awesome. That's some good stuff. And that makes me feel like I need to go do some stuff. I got some homework to do. Reach out to my kids counselors. I know of them, but I haven't necessarily engaged with them, which I know better. So I should reach out and do that. But I appreciate you guys sharing that. And so we're about to wrap up. And this has been a really good conversation. I think this is really gonna help people, and I'm gonna make sure we send this out to different places. But I definitely want to again thank you all for the work that you do. Like, it's so important. I'm sure you don't hear it enough. but it's so critical, and we know how important, the social aspect is to our youth, the mental health is to our youth. And, we really are, it's cliche, but we really are pulling up the next leaders, and the ability for them to be able to cope with things like this is great. And so, like, as you all are in this space, you may have, one or two resources that you like to point people to, point parents to, point kids to, either way. And so I want to just give you both space to talk about any resources. Catherine, I'll go to you first. Any resources that you want to share with people, and then Tiffany, I'll throw it to you.
Definitely. So one thing that I'm encouraging parents and students to do now is actually to do some of that service learning. So, in Maryland, it is 75 hours in order to graduate from high school of volunteer work. And there's actually a list of approved online activities or virtual activities that students can do. And somehow, Brandon, I can share that with you so that you can possibly share it to the larger audience. And then also for parents, there are actually a lot of Facebook groups. Since this time, I've actually joined Facebook groups that have been very helpful in just finding tips, talking with other people that might be dealing with some of the same things that I'm dealing with. And as far as children are concerned, I love Roberta's House. I'm sure, Brandon, you know what Roberta's House is. It's all about grief and loss. So I have referred a couple of students and families to Roberta's House. So those are my resources.
Oh, wow. I wish I had like a list of resources. So I'll just stick with one. So one resource that I would say that I've been using that I would encourage our families to use, especially considering the social climate that we're in right now, is tolerance.org. Yes. So they have a lot of information on there and activities that you can do with the children or the children can do by themselves, and just a lot of education for diversity and inclusion. And I think that if you are looking for a space or open window of how to talk to your child about the social climate, this will be a good website for that information from.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. I appreciate those. I hadn't heard of tolerance. Is .org or .com?
.org.
.org. Okay. I'll definitely check that out, and we can put that into the description of the video. And so, Catherine, definitely those resources, we'll put those in the description of the video too. And that's a perfect plug, because in November we're going to be talking a little more about Black men's mental health in November, which is Men's Mental Health Month. And so my brother actually works for Roberta's House and does some work with them. So he's a counselor with them. And so I'm going to bring him on to talk about Black men and mental health. So that was a perfect alley-oop. So I appreciate that. Right. So with that, again, I want to, thank you all so much for jumping on and for sharing your expertise in this. And again, we appreciate the work that you all are doing. And so definitely, if we get any questions from the video, I'll definitely send it to you all, if that's okay, to get some feedback from you all. Thank you all so much for jumping on. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for thinking about me.
No problem. No problem.
Yes.
Nice to meet you, Catherine. Always happy to see you, Brandon.
Yes, nice to meet you, Tiffany. And I learned so much from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Look at all this Black sharing. It's beautiful.